All right, and we are go. Welcome back to Inner Strength Check, home of all things hobbies, riffs, music, art, and mental health. I'm joined today by the most brilliantly mustachioed grind front man in Melbourne, none other than Tim of the Mighty Munt. Tim, how are you going, mate?
Not too bad, not too bad. It's been a slow start to the year,
Mm,
in my personal life. And Munt slowly, well, not really slowly, but we're steadily preparing ourselves for the tour that we've got coming up in March. So yeah, things are a bit quiet at the moment, but they're about to get pretty busy again.
yeah, yeah. So you guys have had a lot of things going on recently. Great set by the way, supporting Cryptopsy. You guys absolutely killed it, and not to blow too much smoke up your collective asses, but couldn't have picked a better support, really, for Cryptopsy for that bill. How'd you find the set? Did you have fun?
Oh, thank you so much. Honestly, I was a bit stressed that gig because we don't normally rehearse before we play a gig.
Mm.
But Spud had been to New Zealand for several weeks and he
Yeah.
got back that morning.
Oh my
And he
God.
was,
Yeah.
yeah, so he really we needed to lock in. And to be honest, I could have even just sat there the whole time, but sometimes you get caught up in the adrenaline. I think I just pushed myself a bit hard. I'd been practicing probably a little bit too much through the week. So I was really hoarse for that show.
Oh wow.
I was really worried. The whole thing felt like a blur because all I could feel is like, oh, my voice is catching here or the power is not coming through. Apparently on the other side, it was completely fine.
Yeah, there was
But yeah,
none of that on my end, that's for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
but we have a unique chemistry as a band that I mean, other than the fact that we obviously rehearse in our own time, I mean, even if we haven't, we just lock in when we get back in the jam room.
Yeah.
So, and especially when we play live, I think it's the energy of the music. It's obviously the skill and the time that we put into practicing. But yeah, it was a great show to
Mm.
summarize it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you feel like things are really cohesive with you guys, like in terms of you mentioned before, like when you guys go to rehearse, you just lock in. Do you guys just feel like you enter that flow state when you're
Oh,
together rehearsing?
yeah, very easily. I think there have been so many times I couldn't even count that we've just been kind of like shocked, like, oh fuck, we're like really like locked in. Also, you said this is going to YouTube. Do you mind if I swear? I don't know if you care about.
Fuck no.
There we go. Fuck no.
I mean,
Yeah,
I mean, your band name rhymes with a naughty word, so
yeah,
there we
exactly.
go.
But yeah, we'll be shocked that we just lock in really easily.
Mm,
And that's not to speak ill of any other bands that we've been in. I think that we're just all particularly a little bit perfectionist when
mm,
it comes to this band as well.
right.
So yeah,
Mm.
it all comes together.
Because you guys have had, I mean, Munt has already had like quite a lot of when we're talking about experiences, like yourself and I think is it Soul that was in Beggar and or am I getting that wrong?
Yeah, no,
One of you
that's
met.
correct. I mean, my first band is the Seraphim Veil. So
Mm,
that was 2012, 2011 when I joined that band. Ronnie's been in a bunch of hardcore bands like Overpowers and Blood on My Hands are probably the most notable.
yep.
Jared is very well known for having played in Desecrator,
Yeah.
which they've been going for a very long time, keeping the thrash flag high.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Spud
Repping.
Spud played in like a mathcore band back in Scotland. I don't know about what other bands he's been in, but I mean, we've all been doing this for quite a while. Um, and I guess that maybe could just be that we've had so much practice that we've come to this point and it's all very locked in.
Yeah, yeah. So it's like a lot of maturity has come to this band basically. It's not really anyone's first sort of serious project, really.
No, no.
Mm,
And I think even though we've never been a band who have been like, oh, and people in the band have like, we've floated the idea, but the goal has never been we want to be a massively touring band away from home 9 months of the year or something. But we're also
mm,
not a band who's, I mean, maybe at the very start it was like, we're just writing good music and we're playing some shows that like or like small stages, like floor shows, whatever. And I mean, that is kind of the grind, like sludge kind of spirit anyway.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, we're definitely in that middle point of being like, no, we can really make something of this.
Mm.
So we want to do it right and do it well.
Speaking of making something of it, I remember the first time I saw you guys was a few years back at Cherry Bar, and there couldn't have been more than like 15 or 20 people at that
Yeah.
at that gig. And contrast that now to how many people were watching you guys early for Cryptopsy, which in and of itself is impressive because that's one of those sorts of gigs where a lot of people will just tag along for the headliner.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so do you feel like, I mean, you guys have been generating a lot of buzz online, even with like international press and stuff, but how are you feeling about kind of the reaction home side in Melbourne?
Um, yeah, I to be honest, I feel like the others in the band have been kind of watching the numbers go up a bit more and be like, whoa, this is really exciting. I'm not naturally inclined that way.
Yeah,
Maybe it's a self-consciousness. Maybe it's just sort of I like to keep myself a bit humble. I don't want to be,
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know. I'm not really drawn to that, but I've been hearing that, like we've gone from X amount of, daily listens to like set many fold listens. And I'm like, that's kind of crazy.
yeah,
Like I always thought that a full length album would draw more people to us. There's something strange about full length albums these days, even though bands can get by releasing single EP, split, whatever. I think full length albums still have a bit of that draw to them.
yeah.
Like, I don't know, I guess I didn't fully expect it, but it seems to have been maybe people were waiting for it. Like, this will be the defining statement. So now I'll check the band out. But yeah, that definitely seems to be the case.
Yeah, I mean, even for me personally, the first time I'd seen you guys, it was just off. It probably would have been around the time of your second EP release, if I'm getting my dates right. And
Hmm.
even I was sitting there thinking, man, these guys need to put out a full length, but not in terms of an EP not being good enough, but just I want to hear more.
Yeah,
You know what I
sure.
mean? And yeah,
Yeah, even as a being in the band, when I'm writing, I'm writing as like a fan of the kind of music that we play, and
yeah,
like I would even think like I really am excited. I would be excited to hear how we would pull an album together,
mm,
because I mean, I guess with this sort of music, maybe getting in quick and out quick does have its strength. If like, I mean, sometimes when you're writing a song, you might have a hook that comes one time, and you're like, "What the fuck was that?"
yeah,
And some people might say, we'll do that 10 more times. But then there's the other thought of, well, yeah, you got to force them to listen to the song again to hear that one bit.
yeah.
So there is that as one side of it. But yeah, to what you're saying, like even as a fan of the band myself being in it, I was like kind of keen to see what would happen.
Yeah, yeah. And in terms of writing, so what's the kind of the lion's share of the arrangements? Is everyone sort of in their own lane with who's writing for what part, or is it a bit more like synergized? Like, do you guys how is it a collaborative effort? Because it's a melding of a lot of different styles in your sound.
Yep. Um, at the very so Spud created the band, and Spud generally generates most of the momentum with
Mm,
things.
mm,
I write a lot of music as well, many demos. We tend to do demos isolated and then we bring it up, and then it's either this is great as it is, or maybe there's like some riffs in here that could be taken out and it could become a whole song from that. We
mm.
don't really write. I mean, I would say the traditional way of writing doesn't really resonate for 2026 now, meaning it seems like an outlier experience to be in the room and here's a riff and
Yeah.
we're going to play it 10 times and what comes next.
Mm,
So I don't think that's too different from many other bands.
mm.
Uh, but we do, I wouldn't say it's an issue, but it does have its unique challenges that there are many cooks in the kitchen. You
Yeah.
know, there are many of us who have ideas, and I think that tension breeds great outcomes.
Yeah.
There are bands that've got a single songwriter and they've got a very strong vision, and they probably get some feedback, and that has its strength. But I think there is a kind of an exciting tension in going, well, I want to do it a bit more this way, and I want to do it this way, and different approaches coming in. And like you say, we're cramming a lot into our sound, and I
Yeah.
think that makes us a bit unique. Some people might be like, oh, I wish this was just straight up, black and crust D beat, and I don't want any breakdowns, and I don't want any, slams or
Yeah.
six or whatever. But I think we'd probably be lying to ourselves if we tried to do something singular.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's that whole saying, variety is the spice of life. And in your guys' case, it's really worked. Like even with it's funny you mentioned that on the note of the new LP, it does sound like you guys have branched out a lot more, like just sonically. Even for yourself vocally, too, Tim, because I hear a bit more of like a kind of the old hardcore influence coming in vocally there. Like I can hear a bit of those sort of that like real raspy sort of um almost gang chanty sort of styled vocals. And I've noticed that you guys have had more backup vocals, like dual vocals and that sort of thing. So in terms of for yourself, have your vocal influences changed, or it's just a matter of experimenting and adding in different elements? Like, what's that like for you?
I would actually say that well, it's a bit of a long story, but I will start with after COVID. I had really significant challenges with my voice,
Mm,
to the point that I was a bit unsure about it. I even Alana, who did guest vocals on our record, she's been a long time friend of mine, and she's a singing coach. And sometimes I'll talk to her, and she was like, "It might even be possible that like COVID did some long term damage."
yeah,
Well, we kind of investigated a few things. I think at the end of the day, it was that being in lockdown, I just wasn't keeping up my practice enough.
yeah,
And I've not even in my own words, like I have an enormous range. I've when I was young, my goal was to be able to do everything.
yeah,
When I was like, 16, like I started vocals when I was like 13, but when I was 16, I was like, I want to be in a band, and I would listen to any band and I'm like, I have to imitate that sound.
yeah,
Like from like Devourment and Condemned to like Cattle Decapitation to like Wolves in the Throne Room and Mayhem and Whitechapel, so many influences. And it's amazing to have that, but it's really hard to maintain.
yeah. I
And I think,
imagine, yeah,
yes, and there's a lot of different techniques going on. It's like, I mean, imagine being an Olympic athlete, but you're doing all these different kinds of things. You're
mm,
pulling your body in all these different directions, and it could be possible if you had the time and the day to train it all. But it's challenging. So where that landed with the album is that over the last couple of years, specifically since well, there was the two singles we did, but Pain or Ouroboros, that's I had a lot of challenges there. I
mm,
couldn't do the kind of crisper, kind of shouty yells that I used to be able to do. My voice was getting like stuck. My screams weren't like they were gnarled, and they weren't having the same tone that they used to. Because it was almost hard to believe just from not practicing. I'd lost so much
yeah,
range over those that year and a half of COVID.
mm,
So this album, yeah, it's interesting. You observe those the more yells and things like that, because those are things I wanted to keep in our sound, but I just lost the ability to do them well.
mm,
So before the album, I actually just stripped things back because I'm like, I'm not going to put that in there if I can't deliver.
yeah,
So in the lead up to the album, I did some lessons with Alana. I was very diligently practicing not only my heavy vocals, but my singing, all of these things. Like I completely lost my ability to do falsetto, and
wow.
that's where I was worried. I was actually that's why I was worried I'd done damage because my voice couldn't hold it. I've actually managed to get it back,
Oh, that's good.
which is really relieving that there's not some serious damage has happened. But that's what I'd gone from having all this stuff to the bare minimum. Um, so yes, for this album, it was also satisfying having the most dynamic music that we've had as a combination of all our efforts. But I've got myself back to a point, almost
Mm,
like regressing back to a higher level, to be able to deliver with that.
Mm. So it's almost like you had to basically, it's that old. I think a lot of people don't realize that too about especially vocal technique. Use it or lose it, and it sounds like a lot of
Yep.
that had atrophied. But so walk us through a little bit with your vocal coaching and like what your practice routine looks like. Then, if you've is it
Yeah.
regimented
So
or is it a bit sort of bits and pieces? How do you sort of structure it?
I tend to take advantage of drive whenever I'm driving. My partner, I live near Frankston, and my partner lives in Ocean Grove. So whenever I go there, I've got like a 2 hour drive.
Oh,
So
that's a
that
mate. That's near me. That's a not an insignificant hike. You're
no, I mean it's a good thing I love audiobooks as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yes, so I do a lot of warming up, the typical scales, humming.
Mm,
Um, it's funny. I never thought I'd be this person because when I was younger, I don't even know if I'd say arrogant. I was stubborn to do it on my own. I
yeah.
refused to seek out other people's advice. But other than talking to Alana over the last year or two, I was going on Reddit a lot and I was asking people in the screaming subreddit for
Yeah.
their advice, like actually like posting and being like, I'm finding trouble here. Does anyone have any advice?
Mm,
And that really helped me.
mm,
Um, yeah, and like I said, it wasn't necessarily, I mean, I guess you could say it was a bit of arrogance if you're stubborn and you want to do it yourself, but it's not because I didn't respect anyone else's input. I think I wanted to develop it by myself for myself.
yeah.
And, I mean, this wasn't playing so much into the way my voice has been developing, but you listen to a lot of, say, modern deathcore bands.
Mm,
It they're all so incredibly talented, but I feel like a lot of people sound the same.
yeah.
And it's almost like how there are all these plugins for recording music that give you instantaneous like mastering results or compression or whatever.
Mm,
Or this, I've just got Superior Drummer 3, funnily enough. But like everyone kind of ends up sounding the same. It's high fidelity.
mm,
Um, and I think that's part of why I wanted to avoid it. But at the end of the day, it really helped to seek out the advice from the contemporary vocalists who are learning all the new techniques and tricks. Um, One thing in particular that funnily enough, was getting in the way of me fixing my voice is the thing that I thought was the problem.
mm,
Like throat singing, Mongolian throat singing. I used to do that just for fun.
yeah.
And when I started to stop practicing over COVID, when I would try to do my screams, it would get stuck on like and it wouldn't go past that. And I was like,
Mm,
have I done too much throat singing that now I can't scream? Whereas I don't, from talking to all these people, they are actually saying that's the foundation of it. And then you push past that. So I actually did go and do the thing that I'd stopped doing because I thought it was causing that problem to um to rebuild my voice.
mm,
So I do a lot of Mongolian throat singing. There's the Kagria, which is the sort of kind of one, and then there's Hume, which is and it sounds really silly, but we were talking about before you were talking before about all the techniques and the things that go into it, and they're all at these being good at those things allows like the fundamental or the foundation for the voice to be able to kind of twist things and whatever. And if you're just brute forcing it, you don't have that ability to carefully manipulate your voice, which
mm,
is what I was doing for a while because I was just angry. I
yeah.
was like, why the fuck can't I do this? Um, and I mean, lastly on this, I think about when I was like 18, 19, and I was talking to Alana and Troy, who recorded our album. He um he was for a long time the go-to like live sound guy for like Near Obliviscaris. He recorded there many times. And I would hear about the practice regimes of like the guys in those bands where
Oh, it
they would
must be
be
mental for those
yeah,
guys.
yeah,
Yeah.
and like especially for vocals, there was this idea of you basically just want to almost be like talking softly with like a tone, and then you project from there. And when I was younger, I was like, "Fuck that!" Like I want to be as loud as
Yeah. You want
possible,
to
and
as
yeah, and people would
brutally
just
as you
and
can.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And some people like that's not sustainable, and I guess I just didn't have the perspective that I have now because you get to a point where it's like, yeah, actually, you do need to treat it like you need to have a delicacy around it, even though it's this like loud, angry thing. So yeah, that's a lot of rambling. There's a lot of thoughts that I'm having about it because you asking that question makes me think about it. And it's interesting to see how far you can come and your perspective can completely change about things.
I find it very interesting as well too. Just I think out of pretty much everyone I've interviewed, because I've interviewed a lot of vocalists, you're probably out of all of them, mate. I can really tell that the craft, I can tell that you've done a lot of time and you've actually sort of it is a tough moment when you realize you have the whole wide open internet, but sometimes some collaboration, say with Reddit or vocal coaching, yeah, sure, it might take a little bit of an ego hit, but I'm sure you notice like the benefits of it. But I guess that also speaks to if we think grindcore, right? We think some guy rocking up, maybe he's got a needle hanging out of his arms and like a six pack around his neck like a turtle, and he's stumbling into things,
You're
and
talking
he
about
just,
what the
yep, he just rocks up and then fucks off into a back
yeah,
alley
I was
somewhere
gonna
near.
say you're talking about describing Seth from Anal Cunt, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's sort of that's kind of the meme, isn't it? That's the trope, the stereotype. Whereas I feel like the modern grind scene's a bit different. And obviously, for yourself, like there's I think a lot of people might not realize how much actual like research and training is going into this sort of into your performance. Has this always been has this always been the way for you? Like you mentioned earlier, like when you were younger, you really want to kind of push it. And, I want to sound like everyone. But did you always have this kind of onus on like researching technique and regular practice, or is that something that's developed more over time?
Regular practice for sure. I mean,
Mm.
I remember with the Seraphim Veil, like when I first joined, I mean, like I feel like every single day I would be practicing vocals upwards to like 40 minutes a day. And I even remember one of my
Wow.
friends who was literally told Dan, one of the guitarists of the Seven Vows, like, you got to tell Tim to like maybe be careful because he could practice too much and blow his voice.
Yeah.
That never happened at that point. But I was very, very just dedicated in I mean it's kind of like maybe going to the gym, you start to see
Mm.
results. You go, oh, I can move from the 10 kilo dumbbells to the 12, and now I'm at 18, and now I'm at 25, and it can become a little bit addicting because you get that sort of reassurance that, damn, I can make progress if I just
Mm.
keep at it. As far as research goes, like I said, I started when I was like 13. And I mean, the internet wasn't really a thing until I was just finishing high school at 17, 18.
Mm.
So a lot of it was just making it up. I would just listen to a band and I'd try to like kind of copy the sound. Like I'd hear the pitch and I'd hear that sort of particular texture and go, how is he doing that? I mean, that was maybe a little bit later. I remember one of the first times I tried growling, I was like 13 and I was listening to Napalm Death. I think it was like my favorite song at the time was "The Silence Is Deafening," and I just
Oh,
remember
great
getting
track. Yeah.
and getting like my pillow because I'm like, oh, I don't want my parents to hear, and
Uh,
just yelling into it because I'm like,
it's
how
cute.
do you? I can
Yeah.
kind of I can imagine maybe what he's doing, but yeah, that was kind of the start of it.
Mm.
So,
Mm.
but it's only really been in the last few years that there's like this massive culture around this exponential growth of like technique sharing
Yeah. Yeah.
thanks to social media, thanks to I mean like maybe backtracking around the end of high school is when like vocal covers on YouTube were a thing. That might be
Yeah.
the place that you would have someone with like probably like the shittiest camera ever trying to like explain how they do their vocals, and that was probably maybe the start of where I would check in on some people and be like, oh, that's really interesting, and then I'd try it for myself.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Are there any particular like content creators or channels or anything that you kind of follow or like have adopted um, that have been kind of a mainstay or a big inspiration for you, like in terms of your vocal training or?
Hmm. I've literally pulled up YouTube because, like,
Is,
I know there's David Benitez,
mm,
who got some pretty handy advice. Like he might like I remember one that popped up a while ago was like he was doing a Johnny Davey job for a cowboy one. And I mean I kind of had already figured some of this stuff out, but it was a good way to refresh my memory or change the way that I could think about creating sounds. Like he would go, like you want to have that kind of a voice, and then you add
Mm.
like a behind it, and it it wasn't going super deep into it, but it was things like that are quite handy in giving you a quick kind of a shortcut to
Yeah.
starting your exploration with a certain sound. Um, to be honest, though, I mean, there are probably people that I could name. I don't even know if they're that active on YouTube anymore, but there's not really that many.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Mm.
it funnily enough, it was more about fixing my singing voice.
Yeah.
I could probably find them now, but it was people to do with like fixing your falsetto, strengthening your head voice, expanding your range, that sort of stuff. Rather than because I know exactly where things should come from,
Mm.
but I had to expand my voice to get back to be able to access those spots again, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it was the singing stuff. And if anyone's going to watch this and be thinking, "Oh, how can I do that?" I would really suggest you could brute force it. You could just go, "I want to just do heavy vocals," but training your voice, like singing wise, I mean, even voice acting, those
Yeah.
kinds of things can help you in your journey as a heavy vocalist so much.
Mm.
Um, because just before, the simplest thing in changing the way your mouth sits or dropping things, it completely changes your ability to project a certain sound.
Yeah, definitely. Well, in terms of projecting certain sounds, you've definitely going just circling back a bit in terms of the production, like the mix on the new album. I gave that thing a righteous flogging when you guys released it. I just had a listen before we jumped on, and you mentioned Troy did the production. What was the experience like recording the latest LP? Because I think that's another thing that's been quite impressive and gotten a lot of good feedback. And for yourself too, even vocally, like there's a lot of punch with the vocals in the mix, and I feel like the mix has a nice mix of just enough kind of like hardcore grind kind of grit with some modern metal polish. That's just
Yeah.
my take on it, but yeah, the mix is sounding good. What was your experience like with recording the latest album?
So the Seraphim Veil recorded our first EP with Troy. I don't know if anyone else in the band had recorded. Maybe Jared had recorded or worked alongside Troy before, but no, it was incredible. Troy is honestly such a mastermind. He's like almost so quiet and like about his knowledge and expertise that he has. Um, yeah, it was great. We recorded at his home studio. We did record the tracks at Pony in Hallam for drums, sorry,
Mm,
which was a nice throwback because that's where I'd recorded with Troy like over a decade ago. Um, but really, the rest of it was done at Troy's house. He has an incredible home studio set up. He's just like he knows when to sit back and he knows when to push you. He has great ideas. I mean, he's a musician himself, particularly a drummer, so he
mm,
has a great feel for me in particular for vocals, for
yeah.
giving ideas about timing. Like if I'm trying to do like triplet things with my voice, he might instead suggest something a bit different. Um, yeah, really great because I think we've worked with a couple of other engineers or several through in different setups, and they've all been fantastic. Um, but and it's kind of one of the reasons why I was keen to work with Troy is that he really does. If he likes the project he's working on, I'm sure if actually it might be the case regardless. Yeah, he gives that feedback. He gets invested. So that was a great experience. Um, Troy's personality, it's almost like hanging out with an older brother who just kind of knows everything. You
Yeah.
know, he'll stir you a bit,
Yeah.
but you can really like rely on him.
Yeah.
So, like I couldn't recommend him any more highly for people. Um, and he's really quite malleable and responsive to what you want to achieve with your sound. Because you mentioned the grind kind of sludginess of the mix. And I mean, I think Troy probably would have just known from the beginning that that's what he needed to do for
Yeah.
us. But look, Troy's worked on a lot of different records, and some of them are like pristine. I mean, the Neobliviscara stuff, it's all I think
Yeah.
Bellacore he worked with, it's like pristine, like clean,
Polished.
precise, polished. Um, and like, but I never thought that Troy was going unless we'd asked him. I didn't think he was going to go about that. But I think that just goes to show that he's got such a ability to do all these different things. Because
Mm.
sometimes people have got a very particular niche, and that's just what they do.
Yeah, well, it sounds like he's got a good, like, comprehensive view of things. Because if he's someone who's coming at it like from a drumming perspective, even the fact that an engineer is like making suggestions about things like triplets and timing for vocals as well. I mean, that just goes to show that there's a details orientation there across the board,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah,
can hear that.
absolutely.
Mm,
And I really appreciate that. I think maybe to cycle back to the very start of your question, just the general process of working the album, we'd quite thoroughly pre-prod everything. I
mm,
think the last thing that had to come together was the lyrics. I mean, I'd spent many, many, many months. I mean, to be fair, it's probably a couple of years building the concept in my head. But once we kind of decided this is the album, it was probably like 9 to 10 months of solid work, research, writing stuff. Um, Hang on, I've had a blank. What we're talking about the process,
well,
pre-proing.
that's a good lead on. Let's just go with the direction it's going in terms of the writing, because I think the EPs, like, lyrically and thematically, there was some different kinds of themes there. What was your sort of your lyrical inspiration, writing wise? You mentioned you spent a good solid 9 months doing some research and writing. So, what was your process like there, and what were the kind of main lyrical influences? Because my very superficial bird's eye view of it is I feel like the world is not yours, not just because of the title of the album, but thematically, a lot of it is about. I don't want to take too many big swings here, but I feel like it's a lot about our modern hubris and that sort of thing. But I could be wrong. Mixed in with your usual grind themes, but yeah, what in your own words, I guess, what were your sort of main lyrical
Well,
influences?
tying up the point from the process of recording and stuff, I've just finished a 4 year uni degree, so that's one thing that made it very hard to pull some things toward together in the end. But
Mm,
that also relates to the writing. It's I just finished a social work degree, so I think that the process of studying social work in particular really had me thinking quite critically about what sort of the state of things not just in the world at large, but like our society. There was
mm,
even a moment where we were talking about one of the samples on the album, and I used Australian news reports, and the guys are like, "Oh, I hate, I hate hearing an Australian accent," and I'm
yeah,
like, and then I think maybe Troy even said, you do need to consider like the global relatability, and I was like, well, that's kind of the opposite of what I want to achieve because I'm an Aussie. I'm living
mm,
in Melbourne or Nam, and there are very particular things that are going on. I mean, yes, globally, but also here, and I kind of want to capture that.
yeah.
So yes, the writing, social work, thinking about things that are going on in society. Yeah, like maybe I'll go with to the title. I think there was just a point towards the end of my degree where I'd just been thinking about like how stacked against people, how things are so stacked against people at the moment, and things like oligarchies and demagogues and just like big corporations, and just I think I've always been an optimist through my life. Like I've always had a very critical, bleak outlook, but I've had an optimistic side, and I think I got to a point where I'm like, I feel like the optimist in me is kind of dead. And it
Mm,
was like, there's this idea when I don't know how old you are. I'm 33. I'm a millennial. I was raised to think, oh, you can do anything in the world
Yep.
if you set your mind to it. You can achieve. And look, it's good to encourage people because maybe it pushes them along. But I felt like that bubble finally burst where I was looking at things and I was just like, we're so insignificant. Like, you know, I mean, yeah, I guess you could push yourself hard to be an entrepreneur and go out and do things, but at the end of the day, the world, I don't know, it's not made to benefit the small person, really.
Yeah.
The world is not, the world is not yours. And the title, I don't know exactly where it first came from. I think it, funnily enough, might have come from one of the popular songs by the rapper Nas
Oh
from
yeah. I
album
love Nas.
Illmatic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
The World Is Yours.
Yep.
That was a
Oh
song for
yeah.
years I would listen to
Yeah.
when
Great
I'm
album.
waking up in the morning. If it wasn't Carnival, it was Nas.
Mm.
And I'm like, I want to listen to something like when I'm having a coffee or I'm on the drive to wherever I'm going, that's sort of motivating, has a good vibe. And alongside those realizations when I'm doing my degree, I was like, what's the fucking opposite of that? Like, not just the name, but like it sounds kind of cliche because metal bands have been singing and hardcore bands have been singing about, oh, the world's fucked and
Yeah.
philosophizing over politics and economics and that stuff for a long time. And I guess the Australian context, it was just about almost my transformed realization.
Yeah.
That's not I have not even really spoken that to anyone in particular, to be honest, about the album. But that's kind of the crux of it. It's that moment of the flip
Yeah.
when you realize, holy shit, like the world, like everything's out of my control. There is
Mm.
so much wrong in the world. And like the outcome I would want for people when I've wanted this for like the Seraphim Veil, when I've written kind of similar lyrics, is it's bleak, but I hope that it makes people angry to be motivated to try and do something within their control to make a difference.
Yeah.
Not just to beat you down and be like, oh, I I feel like shit and I can't do anything about it. And maybe some people will have that outcome when they if they read the lyrics or similar lyrics for similar bands. But that was kind of the motivation for what I'm writing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well,
Do you have any other questions about that?
it's interesting because I'm a qualified social worker myself.
Oh,
So
there
I
we
think
go.
it's an interesting point that I actually know that there's a lot of like doctors in training, doctors, nurses, police officers, ambos. A lot of the metal community is comprised of folks like ourselves. And I think people will often look at metal, say, compared to punk, and be like, oh, it's more intellectual or cerebral. But really, my read on the scene, especially in the Melbourne scene too, in particular, is there's quite a lot of people coming in from the helping professions.
Mm,
And I think people misconstrue what metal's about sometimes, like lyrically, right? Like people think, oh, that's just all someone getting something off their chest, or that's all negative and dark. But I think as a listener or as a musician, my take on it is, yeah, you get your catharsis, but I don't know, it's just the weird way I'm wired. I can't speak for anyone else, but I get a lot of positive emotion out of listening to albums about insignificance, that kind of thing.
mm.
Um,
But
for
you can feel
you,
seen. Like
hey,
in one way, you might feel seen.
yeah,
And you like maybe like Lords of Excess is about the housing crisis, or
yeah,
very specifically, there were moments where I had conversations with people I know, or like I was happened to be exposed to like talking points that come up on like Sky News, for example, where it's
oh
this
God,
idea
yeah,
of like
yeah,
this is kind of, I mean, we're not the land of the free, but it's this kind of, it's my right. Like, if I want to be as
yeah,
wealthy as possible, like, why shouldn't I be? Isn't that like the beauty of capitalism? And I was
mm,
like, that's insane. Like, you're putting people at such a disadvantage just to hoard and accumulate. And there's a point almost where you can say, and maybe this will be a follow-up song at some point, that some of these people are probably just as afraid and they're like, I need to keep hoarding money so I can pass it on to my children. I mean,
yeah,
it's a very vast and interconnected problem. Um, and yeah, so maybe someone would see that and they feel vindicated. They'd hear it, they'd read it, and they would feel vindicated about the things that are going on with that.
absolutely. And in terms of for you, yourself, Tim, in terms of how being a musician helps you? I mean, you wouldn't be sticking at it for this long if you weren't getting benefits out of it for yourself in some way. How has, I guess, your journey of being a vocalist helped you personally in terms of like your mental health or just the way you see yourself in the world or just coping with it all? Like, is there anything around performing in Munt in particular that you've found useful, helpful?
I think to differentiate, because I joined Beggar after Munt, so to
Mm,
differentiate Munt, well, actually, the early Seraphim Veil stuff was more pure anger, and it's become a lot more cerebral. So in that sort of change, I was like, Munt feels more visceral.
yeah.
And there is sort of a catharsis that comes from playing just more like pure raging music. I
Mm,
feel like as we get a little bit more cerebral now as a band, I do feel like when we're playing shows, I'm thinking a little bit more about technique. And look, I'm getting older. My fitness isn't as what it used to be. I can't be throwing myself around as much.
yeah.
But that was a part of it for sure. And as far as the lyrics go, I I'm a very deep thinking person and I think about every single nuance of situations more so. More, it might sound like I'm blowing smoke up my own ass, but I say it as I notice an almost alienating point of difference between myself and others that I
Mm,
will think about every single angle, even the ones that people don't want to think about or give space to, just so I can have a really thorough understanding and being able to make this music that captures a certain dark, critical kind of feeling, it allows me to do that.
mm,
And early on, I think, actually going even earlier on, like my favorite singer growing up with Chester Bennington, Linkin Park,
yeah.
you know. Now I know that he didn't necessarily write all the lyrics, but let's just say Linkin Park as a whole inspired and motivated people. And I think that that's kind of what I wanted to do, not even
Yeah.
from an egotistical point of view. I've never wanted to be a rock star. I would
Mm,
almost be happy to be in a band that all wore masks and I was just my words spoke for themselves,
yeah.
you know, because I mean, one of the biggest influences for me was is still the Amenta from
Oh,
Sydney.
yeah. Amazing
And
band. Yeah.
yeah, in particular, the album Non. There was something about it that was the lyrics
Mm,
were so hostile and they were really picking at particular issues in a poetic and critical way. And it like sort of inspired and motivated me to want to change myself and change how I saw the world. And yeah, it's not in an egotistical way, but I've always wanted to carry on that torch and hope that if someone else consumes and thinks about the art that I've made, maybe that could do the same thing and it gets passed on. That
yeah.
sort of, yeah, making sense of things, being motivated to better yourself or the space around you. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into all of it. Um,
Interesting that.
yeah.
Hey, heavy metal's just this dark, depressing thing that makes people angry. I think it's quite the opposite. I don't know what I'd do without it, but it's very interesting that you've now gone on because none was a while ago. And from your process of being a musician, and now you're looking, you're in the social work space. So do you feel like maybe even arguably, because for me, definitely, I think for me personally, in terms if we're talking about lyrics and they like having a profound impact, Death's Human album and individual thought patterns, Chuck would have been a great social worker, I reckon.
Mm,
All a social worker or a politician, rest in peace, Chuck.
mm,
But I would definitely heavily attribute my career in human services to albums like that, to lyrics like that. So I think we as musicians and as helping professionals, I think it's actually quite understated the impact that things like heavy metal can have on wanting to make a better world. Because with
mm.
grind, like more pure grind and punk, it's quite easy. Like it's very on the nose. It's like, fight the power. But
Yeah.
um, your story, and which is very similar to mine, it's definitely not an isolated one. I mean, I know people in the Melbourne scene that have said as much. So it's quite interesting to hear that like music has helped with like a values adjustment or like, you know,
Mm.
helping you uncover those kinds of values. Um, yeah. So just an interesting thought
No,
there.
it is. It's just dark. There's pop music that also is not unafraid to go into complicated or uncomfortable topics, but
God, yeah, yeah.
but metal for sure makes it generally it's bread and butter, or extreme music, metal, hardcore, punk,
Mm,
noise. Noise doesn't really have lyrics, but just the overall, yeah, it's quite powerful in that it can do that.
mm,
Um, and yeah, you asked before about lyrical inspirations. Like, look, I actually don't really read that many lyrics anymore. And I think that's
mm.
partly because I'm not buying as many CDs as I used to. I used to love doing that, buying a CD, opening the booklet, reading along. And I still look up lyrics for songs on the internet every now and then. But I feel like I haven't really got an influence with this album. And I would probably say, funnily enough, the biggest influence, other than my past influences and my own developed skill, is probably my study. The books that I've read,
Yeah.
things like that. Like I wrote a couple of papers that had to do on John Braithwaite's work on reintegrative shaming.
Yep.
So maybe not so much the language, but that's sort of where some of the theoretical ideas are coming from.
Mm.
Like I'm only a quarter of the way through Michael Foucault's Discipline and Punish. So that's yeah, I would say that's where most of the textual influences come from for the album.
Amazing. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. And you're the average metalhead man, like chronic overthinker. Like we're we're just a bunch of chronic overthinking nerds, but we can also rock. And speaking of rocking, you guys have a tour coming up.
Yep.
So you excited for the tour?
Yes. It might look like I'm not super excited. I'm because I it's daunting, you know.
Yeah, okay.
Like I've got myself to a point with my performing abilities. I'm like I feel like I'm pretty close to where I was. But it's going to be a lot. We haven't done a tour for a while. The last one it was the 2018 for the Towards Extinction EP, the first
Mm,
one. So it'll be a bit of a test.
mm,
I think once we've started it, I'll be like, okay, this is exciting.
yeah,
And once we get off stage, I'm like, it's exciting because I guess we are at that point now where we do have a bit of a following too, and we don't want to. We've never fucked around, but I know, and the others wouldn't want to disappoint people. We want to be as on our game as much as possible, and it's a bit daunting.
yeah,
Um, but the overthinking and over preparation aside, it's exciting. Going alongside Nembitolik will be great because those guys are just insane. Like they just have such a cool sound and energy about them as a band. We're still in the process of sorting out like lineups, but it's getting pretty exciting thinking about the shows we'll be putting together for people. I feel like there's going to need to be a lot of deep heat going around after those shows for
yeah,
people,
yeah.
and heat
Especially with
packs and all that.
Nebulic, you'll need DP even just from being in a crowd at a Nebulic show.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, no, it's exciting. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, hope to see you at one of our shows. I'm sure I will.
Hell yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So I think we're going to a couple of places we've never been before. We've never been to Penrith.
Yeah, yeah, you're doing
Um,
some regional-ish like
Yeah,
ventures
there's
off.
another one in there I've not been to before. I
Mm,
mean, that might be in the future as well. Like,
yeah,
when you get to a certain point as a band, depending on how you want to do things, you might not repeat the same locations that many times.
yeah,
So we're probably getting to a point where we might we have Melbourne shows, and if supports come up that are great, we're like, all right, take that. But it would be, I think that looking forward as well, it would be fun to do some more regional shows.
mm,
Um, they've been happening more frequently as of the last several years because for a while it seemed like they were like completely ignored.
yeah. It's really
It's
picked
funny
up.
though. I think Newcastle isn't really regional, but that's one place that when I played there for the first time, it was so strange because it's just like a pub and there's just people who are knocking off work that are there. And it's like, this is this is almost uncomfortable that they've got these people looking over going like, what the fuck
You're like,
is
oh,
this?
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I've heard funny stories about when people have played in like regional venues and it's been kind of like that. But then by the end of it, even if people like don't like the music, they're like, that was crazy.
Yeah. Like that was
You know,
nuts. I don't know what
and
that
maybe,
was, but it was
yeah.
cool. Yeah.
And maybe they even came out for the gig, but they might just be coming out because they're like, it's any metal at all.
Anything. It's something.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And it might be their favorite band might be like Parkway Drive or the Amity Affliction, but they would
Yeah.
probably still be like, this is cool.
Yeah.
You know, they get to experience something crazy.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, you know what? I will be seeing you guys when on that tour. And I also would say if you ever come down to Geelong, say Barwon Club or whatever, you'll have one guy there. At least me.
Yeah, I was literally at the Barwon Club last weekend with my partner. We just wanted to get a beer for the day. That was a cool venue. Yeah, so we didn't actually get manage to get Geelong on this run, but I think that's not one of the like super out regional kind of shows, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
definitely
It's not
at the
yeah,
top of
it's
the
not as
list.
regional as yeah.
Yeah, I think we were meant to play there, but it just didn't work out not long ago. But that's on the top of the list. My girlfriend was very cross with me when she saw the announcements for the dates, and she's like, "No Geelong." Like, yeah, but it'll happen.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Well, I'm glad you guys have a sick tour coming up, and I enjoy the new release. So with the podcast show notes, we'll have the tour dates, ticket links, and also links to the new album. And if you guys like everything from black and grindcore to a bit of hardcore slam and sludge, it is all in there. It's techie, it's groovy, it's good stuff. It's sounding mint. So top notch effort to yourself and the boys for a great first full release, man. And
Thank you.
best of luck on the tour. Look, you've been practicing, you've got the regiment. It's just getting past that overthinker
Yeah,
mind and just stepping on the stage.
exactly.
Yeah.
It'll be sick, and I hope to see lots of people out there and people getting injured in consensual and fun ways. It's gonna be
Hell yeah. We love ourselves consensual injury.
yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, you take it easy and have a good rest of
All
your
right.
day. All right.
Have a great day and a great weekend.
You
All right.
too, man. See you
See ya.
soon. See ya.